This is You're Probably Right. Entertainment first, everything else is just bonus. Opinions, all ours. Sometimes backed by research, but never the final word. There are always exceptions, so take it with a grain of salt and a slight dusting of chili powder.
That's the fight and the fright, we're searching for truth. The quiet answer stays inside. You are probably right, it cuts but it heals, it stings but it feels. You are probably right, I'm born to the cure, the pain in my soul. From gliding to ignite, we're finding the way. From biting to inside, where shadows give way. You are clouded alive.
Yeah, how you doing? This is MCM and you're listening to You're Probably Right. This is episode 245, How to Fight Fear, Conflict, Rules That Save Marriages. Okay, now we're going to keep it pretty simple. We're not going to get very high-minded in this. It's just as simple as anybody can understand basically what I'm saying. And I'm trying to keep it that way, okay? Anyhow, listen. Remember, this podcast is for entertainment purposes only. If you do get anything out of it, like a better way to structure your relationship as far as conflict or conflict resolution through to these 7 rules I'm going to go over, or it maybe helps you double down on maybe the way that you are doing it. Maybe I'm totally wrong and you're probably right. I don't know. At the end of the day, I'm just giving out some information here. And although I say advice, it's not really advice, you know. It's just take a look, at least. I advise you to at least listen to what I have to say, and we'll see. We can go from there, right? Welcome back to You're Probably Right. Today, we're going to learn and lean into a topic that every couple, no matter how in love, eventually faces: fighting. If you've been in a marriage or a long-term relationship or even a committed partnership, you know that conflict isn't just likely, it's inevitable. But here's the thing. It's not the fight itself that puts love at risk. It's how you fight. Think about it. Some couples argue and walk away closer, stronger, more in tune with each other. Others argue and leave scars that don't fully heal. Same fight, different outcome. The difference is they understand the rules of fighting fair. Right? So, in other words, you'll have 2 people who will fight and 2 people who will butt heads, but will come together afterwards and realize that neither of them are the enemy. You are home team. Both of you are home team. And you have to remember that. It's not like you're arguing with somebody on the street, right? Going for broke because you're trying not to get knocked out. Right? Or it was your parking spot and you gave it up, or you didn't give it up. Like, it's not that kind of thing. You're arguing with someone who you're going to sleep in the bed with next to them in the bed, or you're planning to marry this person, right? Or you're planning to live forever after, or, happily ever after. Obviously, if you're constantly wounding them, like if they're an enemy, then you're just going to drift farther and farther apart. The arguments are going to get louder and louder until you're so far with your hearts that you won't even have anything to say. It'll just be a look. And the look will probably say every negative thing that you could possibly muster into a sentence or a paragraph. And soon will be the end of your relationship, one way or the other. So anyway, as I said, let's see. Think about it. Some couples argue and walk away closer, stronger, more in tune with each other. Others argue and leave scars that don't fully heal. Same fight, different outcome, right? That's what today's episode is about. We're going to unpack the 7 rules of conflict that can save marriage. Or save a marriage, or at very least, keep the relationship from bleeding out on the living room floor. These aren't abstract ideas. They're battle-tested tools that real couples use every day to fight without destroying love or respect. And before you tune out thinking, this sounds like therapy, let me stop you. this isn't therapy. This is real world marriage advice, especially if you're over 35, juggling careers, kids, bills, and wondering why the same fight keeps showing up on repeat. I'll explain concepts like attachment styles, just briefly, and personality differences in plain English. Just simple stuff, guys. It's not that long. As you can see, it's not a very long episode. And, throw some story in there just to keep it memorable, right? So buckle up. By the end of this episode, you'll not only know how to fight fair, you'll have a blueprint to argue without ending up on opposite sides of the battlefield or the bed. And if you're brave enough to try even one of these rules this week, you'll see the shift. Let's get into it, okay? Hold on, I'm just going to move something here. I really think I need more inputs on my computer. My voice is cracked as well. Let me just move this down. I think we'll probably be about there before we finished off here. Just anticipating how long the episode is. Sometimes I have to move the waves or the multi-tracks on my multi-track here system. You're like, what are you talking about? Never mind. Okay, so rule number 1. Easy rule, right? Pause before you swing. Now, you might be thinking of a regular fight and say, I've always learned to hit first if it's going to go down, because if I get hit first, I'll be knocked out and that'll be the last thing I knew of it. Next thing you know, you're waking up and asking what happened. But what you have to remember is, again, this is your loved one. This is the person you love. This is the person you care about. This is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with, right? In most cases, this is who I'm talking to. People who are trying to move towards a lifelong relationship with this person. Not a fling, not just dating, right? A love interest, right? First rule again, pause before you swing. Conflict hits us like a rush of adrenaline. Your partner says something sharp and your brain instantly fires back, I've got the perfect comeback for you, right? But the perfect comeback? It's usually the first grenade that sets the whole house on fire. Story. Imagine Tom and Lisa. Tom comes home late from work again. Lisa's been waiting with dinner. She snaps. You don't care about this family, Tom fires back. At least I'm the one paying for it. Boom. It's a low blow, right? Let's just say Lisa works, or she works at home. She does things at home. Maybe she takes care of the kids, or she just keeps the house in order and, does dinner, maybe laundry and the different things that house chores. Then maybe that's where she is, right? Or maybe she doesn't. Maybe she works, but she makes a substantial less amount of money, knowing that whatever bills that she's able to even touch, she probably can barely even pay off those. Let's just say it's that kind of situation, right? It's below the belt because that's the stage in life financially that Lisa's in, and she can't just change something right off the bat. So of course you're going to set her off. Of course you're going to start a huge argument. Now imagine the same scene with a pause. Tom feels the sting, but instead of swinging back automatically, like on Copilot, he breathes and he counts to 10. Maybe even says, give me a second. That pause, it doesn't solve the fight, right? Obviously, but it keeps the fight from exploding, full of emotion, right? Conflict resolution for couples starts not with the perfect words, but with restraint. The pause is power. And remember, you're not trying to destroy your spouse, your girlfriend, your boyfriend. You're on the same side. You might have a disagreement about the way you executed something, the way you maybe took the scenic route, where you maybe should have just taken the highway, right? Or the way that you blasted the meal in the microwave rather than just using the oven and letting time take under heat take its course with the food, right? Think back to your last fight. If you had paused for 10 seconds before you spoke, right? What would you have avoided saying? And think of it this way. When you're arguing with someone you love, you want the relationship to continue. I mean, if you don't, then you might as well just say, I'm done, I'm leaving, and leave. But I think the closer you are, the longer you've been together, the more you have invested in the relationship, is the more consideration that needs to go into that pause before you say something. Okay. And if you didn't get that, maybe listen to it back if it's something that you struggle with. I encourage you to we're going on to rule number 2, but if you need to hear number 1 over a couple times to really get and understand where I'm coming from. I mean, I know it kept it pretty simple, but you know what I mean? Sometimes you just need a refresher. Maybe you need to refresh later on. Who knows? Okay. Rule number 2, attack the problem and not the person. Attack the problem, not your partner. We've all done it. Instead of saying, I feel hurt that you forgot, we say, you always forget. And right off the bat, we already know that that's a lie. Nobody always forgets, right? Or you're so selfish. Listen, one attacks the problem, the other attacks the person. And here's the catch. When your partner feels attacked, their brain switches to listening to defending. Because the reality is nobody always does anything. Nobody always does everything right, and nobody always does everything wrong. There are going to be, outliers to the situation or different situations where you actually fall into doing it the right way. Even if you fell into it doing it the right way, it's still you can still respect it and realize that they did something the right way. Maybe they don't always know what they're doing, or maybe they think they always know, but they make mistakes anyways, right? Attachment style shows up here, right? Anxious partners often go on the offensive. Their fear of abandonment. Avoidant partners shut down. They fear being smothered. Both reactions miss the real target, the problem itself. Try this swap instead. Instead of you never listen, try this. I feel invisible. I feel invisible when we talk or when I talk to you, and I need your attention. Notice the difference? One escalates, the other invites a fix. Think of one phrase you've used in an argument that attacks your partner. How could you reframe it to attack the problem instead? You see, if you keep reminding yourself and you're getting in these situations that the person across the table, on the other side of the bed, standing in front of you, is home team, right? You might have issues on how you executed or how they executed the play or the situation, but you have to remember that you're on the same team, right? Wayne Gretzky's not going to throw Yari Curry over the boards and slice him with his skate, right? Michael Jordan, although they don't like each other, as we've found out, wouldn't try to steal Scottie Pippen's shoe so he couldn't get out on the court. Would he? No, because Mike can't win by himself. Gretzky can't win by himself. You understand? Keep the fight in the ring. Rule number 3. Keep the fight in the ring. Picture a boxing match. 2 fighters, 1 ring. They throw punches, but when the bell rings, right, for them to stop, they stop. The fight doesn't spill into the parking lot. The fight doesn't spill on the way to the dressing room in most cases. Neither is there a mother jumping in with a shoe. Boxing fans will know what I'm talking about when I said that. That's how relationships should work. Too many couples drag every past fight into the new one. And that's really, really hurtful. What starts as, why didn't you call? Right? Turns into, and remember what you did last Christmas when you went out for stuffing and you came back an hour later when the turkey was already done, or 4 hours later when the turkey was already done because you decided to go 2 cities over for the special stuffing, right? That's not fighting fair. That's an ambush. It's already established that that person did something wrong in that fight last year, that Christmas. But for you to pull it into now, you're fighting and you're being unfair. Healthy arguments in a relationship need boundaries. Keep it time boxed. Keep it about today. Keep it in the ring. When you contain the fight, you give your relationship a chance to heal instead of tearing open a scar every time, or all the scars in some cases every time. When something's already been established to have gone wrong, if you want to talk about those things, for whatever reason, maybe it was never resolved, then do it when everybody's happy. Not to put a cloud, but just to have a conversation. But what you never do is bring it into a new argument, especially when it's not related. But better off letting, what is it, sleeping dogs lie? Just leave the past, let bygones be bygones, right? Don't go back over that bridge. You're on this side of the bridge now. Let last year be last year, or last time be last, even if it's last week. Rule number 4, respect the referee. And who is the referee, or what is the referee? The referee is boundaries. What you don't want to do is bring in a third person. You certainly don't want to bring your kids in. You don't want to call your mother, and you don't want her or him to call their mother, or anybody else, even your neighbor. You don't need it. And even suggest, let's just say you're going to therapy. Your therapist or your counselor is not the referee. The counselor or the therapist is there to act as a go-between, but not as a referee. They're on his side and her side. You get it? And they're just there to help you come to some sort of agreement, some sort of solution, something that you're going to work on moving forward together. Do you understand? So the people who are smart enough and manipulative enough to turn a counselor or a therapist into a referee, you got a hard road ahead of you. If you're going, like, some therapists and counselors aren't smart enough to stay out of that part of things. And, sometimes, you'll have a woman who will pick a woman to be on her side, right? Or a guy will think he can pick a guy to be on his side and somehow manipulate the situation because maybe they've been already manipulating their partner for years. And they know that if they get the right person, then their spouse will have, or their long-term partner will have no choice but to side. But you understand something. Even if you've been able to, or you're able to manipulate another person into jumping onto your side, worse if it's your kids, just understand, you both know what the reality is. You're not bending the person's mind. You might be bending their will. But doing that and getting a referee on your side, all you're going to do is further break apart your relationship. You might be right today or this year, but understand you're ruining your relationship when you drag other people in and get somebody on your side. Okay, so rule number 4, respect the boundaries. Every fight needs a referee. In a marriage, the referee is boundaries. There's a point where emotions flood. You're not rational, you're not kind, you're not even present anymore. That's when boundaries matter. Agree on a signal. Maybe it's time out, lemon tree, tippy toe. You never know, right? Maybe it's pause and respect the call. If one partner says, I need 15 minutes, and the other keeps pressing, you're no longer fighting fear. You're cornering and cornered people will lash out. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You're thinking, yeah, this person only tends to ask for 15 minutes of a break or a smoke break or just to step out and get some fresh air because you finally got them where you wanted. And maybe they know that whatever point you just brought up, instead of broaching the topic, they need a break because they've just lost hand, they've just lost the advantage, and there's something that they can't really come back to without pretty much conceding the victory. We know those people are there. And what I'm saying to the person who maybe finally has gotten the upper hand in the discussion, the disagreement, the argument, is to let them go. If you really, really need to, and it's really, really important to you, and you know you're going to lose your train of thought, which is usually a tactic in arguing, right, in fights, is for somebody to lose their resolve on what they're actually doing at that particular point. It happens in boxing, right, where two boxers are fighting, and one boxer will throw a punch that will look like it's a low blow, right? And any guy knows that if somebody really hits you where it counts in the middle there, below the belt, chances are you're out of commission. Many guys will be on the floor. Of course, there's protection in boxing, so that's generally why the guy doesn't generally end up on the floor, but it can happen, right? The point is, sometimes people pretend that that's what happened. It was a low blow. I need a break, right? I think in boxing, they give you up to 5 or 12 minutes or something like that to sit there and recuperate. And maybe you thought like everything was on the line, so you better take that break. It looked like it was bad, so we'll just pretend like it's bad. That's not the point. We know people do that. But did you know the bravest thing you can do in a fight with a loved one is not to win, but to stop before everything turns ugly? They're not your enemy. You're on the same team. Rule number 5. No low blows. See that? Words that scar. No low blows. You know exactly what words will hurt your partner the most. The childhood wound, the insecurity, the thing they confessed to you in trust when maybe things were happier and you were just trying to let them know who you are and what you've been through, right? Fighting dirty feels powerful in the moment, but a low blow scars, right? Low blows scar. They don't fade. One, you're just like your mother. Ugh. You know, or you keep eating, you're gonna look like your mother. That can echo for days. That can echo for years. Just think about it. And what if the mother passes away? I remember you said this about my, you know what I mean? Like you are hard pressed to come back from something like that, right? The rule is simple. Just think about it. Just think about any time that you've known anybody and they've attacked someone's mother. Just as an example. You can't really come back from that. And you know, the funny thing is I'm here thinking about it. And I remember when someone said something about my mom, right? My mom's passed and gone. Something like that, although you forgive, you don't hold it, but it still hurts to ever hear somebody attack someone like your mom who's there to you. Maybe it's not your mom, maybe it's your sister, maybe it's your twin, right? Maybe it's your brother, right? Maybe it's your best friend. But obviously a mother is another level because she gave birth to you, right? So as I said, fighting dirty feels powerful in the moment, but a low blow, it will scar for a long time. And as I said, those types of scars, they don't fade. People remember them for years, right? The rule is simple. If you wouldn't want it said to you in front of a crowd, right? Don't say it to your partner in anger. Winning the round isn't worth losing the marriage or losing your bond, because maybe they won't leave, but they'll be scarred. And I'm saying, this is your home team. This is your partner. You don't want them not to be functional in different ways. So when you're scarring somebody, right, understand that the whole point of hurting, throwing blows, ripping scars off, and all that stuff is to immobilize and to defeat and maim your opponent. But as I said before, your wife or your husband, your boyfriend, your girlfriend, they are not your opponent. You're not trying to wound this person. You're having a disagreement. You're trying to maybe state your opinion, state how you feel, state how you think things can be better, or what direction you can go in to make things better and more cohesive, right? But you're not trying to hamper the person so they can't walk, so they can't talk, so they can't communicate, so they can't properly show emotion and nurture and love you. Do you understand? When you're leaving your partner, your wife, your husband with scars, after the argument's over and it's a new day or a new year, just understand that they have that scar now, right? And you rip it off and you compound it with something else, you're just making it worse and worse. Rule number 6. Replay the tape together. Here's where couples miss the gold after the fight. When the dust has settled, right? Sit down and replay the tape. Not to point fingers, but to ask, what happened? What did we learn? This is where the big 5 personality traits come in. One partner may be high in the conscientious, they crave order, and the other may be high in openness, they crave freedom. Fights often come from these differences, not from a lack of love. Replay the tape. Learn your partner's ways. Learn your pattern. Learn their pattern. Each fight is a teacher if you let it. But you have to be open, and you have to be open to honesty and criticism. And you have to learn how to critique without making someone feel like they've been criticized as an individual who they are. Rule number 7. Touch gloves or whatever and reconnect. Right. In boxing, right? Since we're using that as a thing. After a match, as an example, or it's just something real life. We could use something else, but boxing's pretty simple because there's 2 combatants, right, in the boxing match, right? After the match, fighters touch gloves, right? It's a sign of respect, right? In a marriage, the same ritual matters. After the fight, reconnect, hug, right? And you should know if you fought in a way that your wife or your husband or your boyfriend or your girlfriend will not hug you, then you definitely have to rethink, what did you do, right? If you came at it objectively and not subjectively, then you wouldn't have made personal attacks in ways that you shouldn't have, right? It should have been a fair fight, right? So you should be able to hug and say, I love you, and make peace. Without repair, fights leave cracks. With repair, fights can actually build intimacy. Couples who learn to close the loop don't just survive conflict, they grow stronger because of the conflict. Maybe something needed to be aired out. You understand? But you have to do it in the right way. What's your repair ritual? Do you hug? Do you apologize? Do you laugh it off? If you don't have one, right? What could it be? It's something for you to think about after this. Listen, so here's the truth. Conflict isn't the enemy of love. unfair conflict is. The couples who last are not the ones who never fight, but the ones who fight with rules. Pause before you swing. Attack the problem, not the person. Keep it in the ring. Respect boundaries. No low blows. And replay the tape. And always, always reconnect. Try even one of these rules this week, right? And watch how, your arguments shift. Fighting fair doesn't just save marriages, it deepens them. It turns conflict into connection. You're probably right that fights are unavoidable, but you're also probably right that love is worth learning how to fight for and fight fair. Anyhow, y'all, this is about it. Hopefully you enjoyed this episode. Nice short one, right? Thanks for coming out, and we'll see you next time. Okay, take care. MCM signing out. Peace. Thanks for tuning in to You're Probably Right with MCM. Life's messy, unpredictable, and full of questions, but that's why we're here. If today made you think, laugh, or even say, then I've done my job. Hit follow, share it with someone who needs it, and come back next time. Until then, stay sharp, stay humble, and remember, you're probably right.